Today, I'm going to be interviewing Mark, who has a wealth of experience dealing with anxiety and has a very colorful background. And I'm also going to be putting some links into both on Facebook and YouTube to some of the other exciting things that Mark does, including some crazy isolation workouts and various other bits. But I'll allude to those later. But Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. And first of all, if those of you who have read the little blurb and the intro to this interview, you'll know that firstly, Mark has a lot of experience, but he's had a lot on his plate over the last few weeks. So Mark, how are you doing?
Oh, thanks, Mac. Yes, just to highlight what's been going on for me. So unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, my mother passed away, and she passed away in a care home. And for some of you, you may understand what that's currently feeling like, the inability to be able to go and see someone there. But then you have the obviously added trauma and feelings that are associated with when somebody passes away in that fashion, and you're not able to be with them in those last moments. So that's been a trying time. On top of that, unfortunately, myself and my partner have contracted the virus. Luckily, it hasn't been in a too severe a way. Loss of smell and taste, severe fatigue, and associated headaches and such like. But we're on the mend on that one. But you take that, plus the current situation, plus, like many of you out there, your work or my work has dried up completely. And then you have all sorts of admin that you need to take care of in relation to the circumstances that I've just described. So if you're trying to get a death certificate at this moment in time to process all sorts of other things, you'll find that's particularly difficult. Plus, I have a daughter who's 300 miles away in Falmouth in student accommodation, isolated on her own. And I also have a sibling who is having an emotional breakdown, let's put it that way. Now, you may be asking, how am I feeling at this point? And what I would say is, I'm okay. Now, that might sound surprising to some of you, but the reason that I'm okay is that some time ago, when I was suffering from anxiety in a very big way, I found myself at a crossroads. And that crossroads really was whether I take the exit route or whether I try and find out and help myself come through this. I didn't even realize that anxiety was at the root of all of the things that I was going through. I just felt terrible about so many things, and that had been going on for a very long time in my life. Now, I don't want this to be about me and what I've been through, but that's just an illustration at this moment in time about why I am so passionate about anxiety. And what I basically found at that dark moment in my life was that there were so many different approaches to this condition, this state of mentality. And that created a lot of confusion in me. I didn't really know what I was supposed to do, how I was supposed to feel, believe, pursue, until I thought, well, come on, there must be some universal way of looking at this, some foundational way of holding on to something that is, I wouldn't say meaningful, because as I'll come to explain, meaningful is a subjective term in itself. Yep. I wanted facts. Does that make sense, Mac?
Absolutely. And it's an interesting one, because through the conversations you and I have had, and I've had with several other people, I find that everybody has some form of anxiety, but they all tend to deal with it in different ways. And I found it was quite interesting when you and I first spoke about this, and I put out a survey and said to people, hey, would you mind going on there and giving us your feedback and comments? And ironically, only when I took the put your name and your email address down, and I took that off the form, all of a sudden people were prepared to give some form of feedback. And there's, in various forms, we've found that anxiety has almost got a bit of a stigma attached, that nobody wants to admit that they're not okay.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Anxiety does have a stigma attached to it. And I've found that in looking to promote the work that I do, that if you mention the word anxiety, people are repelled away from it. But what I've found is that, anxiety is a condition. Anxiety is a state. Anxiety is a physiology that we all have. And to deny it is really denying your own reality. And as I was alluding to earlier, I needed, in my own way, to find something that gave me a foundation, facts. I wanted facts. I wanted something that nobody could refute or say, oh no, you shouldn't do it this way, do it this way, and all the rest of it. And those facts have really, and those foundations that I'm talking about, have really helped ground me. That's the word, ground me. And at times like this, it gives me comfort and security in knowing that I'm doing the right thing. Now, what is that right thing? Well, when I was at that low point in my life, one of the things that had taken me to that was that I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what my purpose was. For many, many years, there had been a hole inside me. There had been this this void, this not knowing what I was supposed to be. Was I good enough? Am I good enough? What should I do? And you have in the media, you have out there, so many people saying, you've got to be this, you've got to be this, you've got to get that, you've got to earn, it's about this, it's about that. And all of these are conflicting and have different meanings. And so that combined with the life that I'd had up to that point, with the issues in childhood, relationship issues, addiction issues, all the other stuff that combined to bring me to that point in time, made me realize that I needed something tangible, something solid that nobody could refute. And so what I did with you, Mac, the other day was I threw out this question, didn't I? I said to you, and it's not a small question. I said, what is your purpose in life? What is the point of Mac? And go from there, Mac. What did you say? How did we go from there?
Well, I think for me, the purpose was to make a difference and to contribute. But it's really understanding that why before you can be okay with yourself. If
exactly.
That makes.
Because what you did was you did what everyone does when I put out this question. And this is related to anxiety. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going off on some tangent here.
You put me on a bit of a spot there, which is quite nice.
Absolutely.
For a split second, I was like, the heart was racing.
This is all related to how I cope with anxiety, because to understand anxiety, you need to understand this purpose. And many people out there will probably be looking at me or us at this moment in time thinking, what the hell is this guy on about? How can he know what my purpose is? Well, I'm telling you all right now, and I don't, I'm not equivocating away from it. I know what your purpose is. I know what all your purposes are. Okay, the purposes for you on this planet. Now I could keep going with this to build it up and build it up. And at this point, I'm asking people to give me examples, etc. Maybe certain things coming through on the chat, I don't know. But what I want to say is that it is very, very, very simple. Your purpose, my purpose, Mac's purpose on this planet is one thing and one thing only: and that is to survive. Survival is key. Without survival,
Yeah.
go for it, Mac. Without survival, there can be nothing else.
Well, the whole survival thing. I remember you and I had a very detailed conversation around this, because for many years, my response as a natural when people ask me, how are you? I would go, I'm surviving. And I remember saying to you that somebody said to me once that, oh, that's not great. It's not necessarily positive. And I thought, well, for me, it was, because being a post-heart attack survivor, the fact that I got up this morning, the fact that I was alive and I'm, got to see my kids and I've got to see the sunshine, meant I'm alive. And therefore the surviving for me was quite a big thing. But for other people, that surviving thing was like, okay, it's not that bar.
No, it's been lost. It's been lost. And what we do is we tend to put huge pressure on ourselves because of the expectation of what we're being told, the expectation of others, the conditionings that we've had, that isn't our purpose. But it is. That is the base. That is the foundation you can come back to every time. If you wake up tomorrow morning and you are breathing and there is a roof over your head, even if there isn't a roof over your head and you are breathing, you are a success, okay? And you can start from that point. You can choose what else you want to do. You can take the pressure off yourself and you can choose. Now, nobody can argue this point, that the purpose of your life is to survive, regardless of your religion, your conditioning, your background, your political beliefs, your genders, whatever it is. It's universal to everyone, okay? So you can very much start at that point, that everything is about survival. And when we look at the current condition that we're in, when we look at the current situation that we're in, it becomes much more pertinent, okay? And it really feeds into why we're feeling the way we're feeling. Now, what we're going through at the moment is unprecedented. In my lifetime, 57 years, I've never seen anything like this. In fact, nobody, I think, that's alive has ever seen anything like this. You have to go back to 1916, 17 to the Spanish influenza outbreak to see an outbreak and an effect on the world and its economy, etc. that's happening right now. So what we are experiencing is a massive amount of change.
Yeah.
Change in this format, change from all the normal things that you love to do, all the normal things that you take for granted even, can be incredibly disturbing, threatening.
So I have a question there, because one of the things that I've learned through my life, and I've had copious amounts of changes, and the saying of the only constant is change, because things are always evolving, always changing. We didn't have the internet like we have it now 25, 30 years ago. We didn't have smart mobile phones. We didn't have any of the amazing technology that we have now, even 5 or 10 or 20 years ago. So why does change still bring about so much anxiety when it's the only thing that we know and we get used to?
Because innately we are creatures of habit. We are creatures who we don't embrace change because we enjoy stability. Okay, we're type creatures. We're not used to pets. Doesn't understand or is not in the right mindset to be able to cope with that. Now, that said, when we are threatened, we can go one of two ways, because we are incredibly good at adapting. That's one of the things that's made us the most successful creatures on this planet, our ability to adapt. But coupled with that is that sense of threat, okay? That sense that we have a mind that can imagine the worst. And if we allow it, it will go off onto these extremes of what can happen. Now, I'll come back to that, because let's come back to survival and where I linked into that survival and how I linked that through to anxiety. Well, when we think about survival, what is it that makes us humans the most successful creatures on this planet. Why is it that we've managed to, live, dominate, exist, and become the topmost life form on this planet? Again, that's another question like, what's your purpose, that I throw out,
Sure.
and I threw it out to you.
But surely it's your ability to reason.
Okay, that's a very good suggestion.
Although I know a lot of animals can, but at a I would say, a superior level.
Indeed, and of course our intellect is, if you like, superior to many creatures on this planet, and has enabled us to create and manage and make a world that is incredible. But that is not what I'm looking for. That is not what I believe has differentiated us from everyone else. And when I to those people that come to me to be helped with anxiety, one of the reasons, the reason that you're here is the reason why we are so good at surviving. They look at me with a shocked expression. It's like, what are you going on about? What do you mean? So what I do then is I take them through the classic freeze, flight, fight scenario. And I throw them back 100,000 years into the world as it was. In times, in the span of the earth, a very short time ago, 100,000 years. And I say, it was a jungle out there. So what do you think, how do you think you, in your present state, would survive? Let's just say you're in that jungle and you hear a loud roar. And you turn around.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. You turn around, you see this tiger looking at you, this big saber-toothed tiger, it's looking at you. Now, what do you feel? What happens to you?
I guess fear is the thing, more than I would say anxiety, I guess.
Okay, and what creates fear? I'm coming at this from a factual basis.
So just the unknown, not knowing what you're about to face, and the imagination a lot of the time posing a picture of some extreme that's going to happen.
Well, let's just put it this way. You can see the tiger, so it's not unknown, all right?
Yeah. But the action of the tiger is unknown.
Precisely. So you're going through fear. You're absolutely right, because it's present. The danger is present. Anxiety works on when the danger isn't actually there, but you still get frightened, okay? It's imagined. So you are there, you see the tiger, and fear grabs you. What creates the fear? What physically creates that fear? How do you feel in your body? What starts to happen?
Oh, it's the blood rush, the tensity in your body, and the hormones that start kicking in to give you that fight or flight.
Exactly. So the fight or flight system kicks in. What chemicals are we talking about here?
For the life of me, I've just gone blank.
I'll give you a big clue. It begins with A.
Yeah, I've gone totally blank.
It's okay, Matt. It happens to the best of us, sir. It shows we're live. We're talking primarily about adrenaline. Now, I know that people say, there's cortisol, norepinephrine, and all sorts of other things going on, but let's just stick with adrenaline. Adrenaline gets shot out when that tiger looks at you and starts roaring. Adrenaline gets shot out.
Yeah.
You do that, and your primitive emotional brain, we'll come back to that, will say, whoa, we need some sort of system to be initiated here to help us in this. So adrenaline gets shot out. Where does that adrenaline go, first of all? What does it start making the body do first?
Well, react. And the heart rate flying through the roof.
A bit of a clue there, yeah. So the heart starts pumping. Pumping what? There's Biology 101. The heart starts pumping blood, yeah?
Correct. And this is where your oxygen and everything else goes through your body.
Exactly. So resources that are needed in a physical situation are redirected away from parts of the body that don't need it, like the digestive system, the skin, and all sorts of other areas, out to those major parts of the body, the muscles, the big muscles of the body that you need. You're about to experience physical danger, and you need to either run or you need to fight. Now, we haven't mentioned freeze, and we could come back to that, but
the deer in the headlamp situation.
Yeah, some people are so overwhelmed by fear sometimes that they freeze, but there is a biological reason why you do freeze, and it's something that people do when they get a large shock sometimes. You know, you heard that when somebody's said that, you know, you're told that somebody's died or some really bad news. And the reason that we do that in the survival sense is because the animal might not see you, the creature, the prey. If you are still,
If you stand still enough.
Exactly. Many
Like a chameleon type thing.
That's it. They rely on movement for them to see you. So if you freeze, you might not be seen. Anyway, let's just pretend you haven't. You know, he does see you. Okay. So all these resources are being redirected to the major areas of your body. Your muscles are tense. Okay, they're pumped with blood. You are now supercharged. You are actually at this moment in a physical state where you are stronger than you ever are on a normal basis. So then the tiger comes lopping towards you. What's the next thing you do?
Run.
Run, yes. Usain Bolt, beat your heart out. You're off and running, mate. You're, 9 seconds flat, 100 meters. So you're bombing it away, getting away from that tiger. Fantastic. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, the tiger is a little bit faster than you. It's a bit of a ropey tiger, this one. It's an old one. So it does catch you. It jumps on you. What's the last thing that you could possibly do?
Fight.
Fight, exactly. Now, luckily for you, in this scenario, you reach across, and by the side of you, there's a rock, a sharp rock. You grab the rock, bang it, the tiger across the temple. Lucky shot, let's just say that happens. Tiger rolls off you. You're not too badly hurt. So you get up and you leg it to the nearest high ground or away. Now, at that point, what happens when that situation is over? You can't...
Sense of relief. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a huge sense of relief. Okay, it's a huge sense of relief. But also at that point, what starts to happen? Because these other stress hormones I was talking about, things like cortisol, they initiate something else in you. They initiate a process of going over and over, a process of looking back on the event. Okay. Now, why would you
replaying?
Why would you want to replay the event in your mind? What's the point of that replaying of that event from your perspective?
I would say potentially to get perspective, maybe to look at it and go and think about how you could have done things potentially differently.
Where do we come in on this conversation, Mac? What did I say that the most important thing that you could do on this planet was? What was your purpose?
Survive.
Exactly. So why do you think you're going over and over it in your mind?
For me, I would say so that you can think about how you can avoid that in the future.
Exactly, to improve your survival prospects.
Yeah.
All right. It's intrinsically that rumination,
learning process. Yeah.
Intrinsically linked to improving your survival chances. Okay. So the point of going over and over, the point of worrying is to produce an answer. And that answer is intrinsically linked to improving your survival chances. Now, because you ran away... So you're saying
worrying is a good thing?
What I'm saying is that worrying or anxiety, when used in the correct way and not misappropriated, is absolutely essential to our survival. It's absolutely essential because it will produce things for you that will get you out of difficult situations in the future. Okay. The problem is that Mac is sat there in his house. I'm not saying this is you, but let's just take you as an example. You sat there.
I'm good. I'm happy to be an example.
COVID's running at 100 miles an hour out there. You know, every time you put on the news, there's more negativity about how many people have died and how many people will lose their jobs, and then how the world's going to go into a recession and how everything's going to change. And we don't know the end of what starts happening to you when you start hearing things like that. I'm not saying you. Let's not use you particularly. So I know you're
no. But even myself, who generally is, I would consider myself more positive than most. still, nobody has experienced this before, so it still becomes overwhelming.
It becomes
still,
yeah. And so what I want to say to you then is, when it becomes overwhelming, how do you feel?
Your whole state changes. I mean, your physicality, your breathing, everything changes.
So in other words, the thoughts that you have are intrinsically linked to the way that your body reacts. You are creating a reaction by the way that you think. Now, to a lot of people, this might seem pretty obvious, but when we think about the reaction that you're having, you're experiencing exactly the same reaction that you went through when you saw the tiger.
Yeah.
So the same mechanisms are in place. Maybe not to the same extreme, depending on how worried you get and how anxious you get. Some people, they will take it right to that extreme, okay? And that's when we get to panic attacks and such like. But by thinking in a negative way, or thinking and catastrophizing and taking things beyond what reality actually is, you're going to initiate that fight or flight response. And this is where you can misappropriate what happens. Because the same things will happen. The blood will start pumping. Okay, the heart will start pumping blood, as I say, out to the major muscles of the body. The muscles will be tense. The digestive system will be removed of all blood supply. So other areas of your body will be devoid of that blood supply too. Your focus will become slightly erratic and looking out in all sorts of strange ways for danger, etc. Breathing will change. So you are experiencing the physical symptoms in exactly the same way as you would have done if you'd have seen the tiger. But the major difference is that there is no physical threat. There is nothing to process other than the imagination that you've set in motion. So the other chemicals that help you then analyze what's going on, or go round and round and round and round, will also be created and present in your body. And what those will do is they will encourage those negative thoughts to continue.
So,
and not only continue, sorry, Matt, not only continue, but they will start to expand. Because what are you not getting from this? What was the point of ruminating in my first instance?
Say that again.
So when you went through the physical threat, when the tiger was actually, you got away and you stopped and you started to go round and round
to assess.
Exactly, to assess the correct answer. And you got that answer. Let's never go back to that area again on our own or ever again. Okay, chance of survival massively increased. Okay, you're a success even more. All right. Now, what I'm saying is that when you ruminate in a negative way on your own about things that you really can't control, and again, we'll come back to that, you are creating a feedback loop. And that loop will just get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not creating an answer. It's not serving a purpose. So that's when you're misappropriating anxiety. Okay?
So I have a question at this point, because it's specifically on this, because many people can have almost identical situations, but the anxiety levels will be totally different.
Completely.
So, if I just look at some of the things that people pose to me about what makes them anxious, there was such a big variety for people from different walks of life. I mean, from an 8-year-old who was worried about being able to go and have a play date with their friends, and it made them like crazy anxious that they felt like they'd lost somebody. But then you've got somebody on the other end who, an investor of a business that supports 10, 20, 30 families, and is sitting there trying to keep the business afloat, own personal family issues, and loads of other things. And why does that scale vary so much for people, where one person can face exactly the same thing as somebody else potentially, but it maybe render them totally overwhelmed and that deer in headlamps, where they physically just can't find a way to proceed?
Yeah, great question, Mac. Look, the underlying condition of anxiety is a huge umbrella. It encompasses not only a huge range of physical and mental presentations, but it's also very much dependent, your presentation of anxiety is very much dependent on the conditioning and the life events and the interactions that you've had up to that point in your life. Parental role modeling, all sorts of other factors combine to say whether one person is better able to deal with another anxiety than another person. There's also certain amounts of evidence to suggest that sensitive. When I say sensitive, I mean more sensitive to potential threat. It may be even genetic. It may be that biologically they will hand down various components of their brain structures or physiology that make you more anxious. Now, that's a slight aside, but what I want, the overall message I want to get across here is that anxiety can be your friend. Can be. We've got to understand that what we have today is a world that wasn't really imagined, by evolution, by nature. We have become so successful at what we do is that we've created a world that really are designed for. Our brain, per se, is an amalgam of many evolutions of brains. We've got three. They're not separate, but their brain has evolved to cope with the changes in environment and to make the creature more successful. And many of you will understand, I suspect, that inside your head you can often have an argument. You often seem to be having this conversation with something else. Now, sometimes that something else actually becomes you, and it takes you over, and you feel like you've turned into the Jekyll and Hyde type character. You don't want it to be you, but it ends up being you. You're having this argument, and then all of a sudden you start talking as though you're some sort of strange creature. We see that all the time. And what I want you to all sort of understand, and this is one of the coping mechanisms that you can use with anxiety, is I want you to think that there are, let's just for simplicity's sake, say that there are two brains in your head, all right? Let's call one the emotional brain, and let's call one the rational brain. Now, the emotional brain is that brain that was ideal for living and existing in a very dangerous world, which up until very recent times we did live in. I'm talking, as I said, maybe 20,000 years ago, maybe even less, 10,000, 5,000, 1,000 years ago. And it served you really well to be negative, to be anxious in your attitude towards everything. Let's just take you, Mac, again and throw you into that jungle 100,000 years ago. Yeah. You've got your attitude now, you're a positive guy, the sky's blue, the birds are singing, everything's right with the world. How long are you going to last, mate?
Not very long, because you're going to be taking your eye off the ball for your survival skills when it comes to looking at the predators that are out there to hunt you down.
Absolutely fantastic, mate. You're spot on. Many of the clients that I have, they come in very anxious, very upset, very disturbed, life's a mess, etc. And one of the things I say to them is, if you'd be back in that time, you'd be a massive success. You'd outlive us all, because you're continually looking out for issues. Where is it? Where's the tiger? Where's the tiger? Where's the tiger? You'd live a lot longer. Okay, so you were designed for that time. We were all designed for a more dangerous time. Our baseline, even from the point at which we're born, is to be negative, and that has been scientifically proven. MIT have done sort of cross sections of the amygdala, the threat sensing part of your brain, and found that there are more negative neurons than positive ones. So there is a preponderance to be negative. In the real world, you can see that. Why is the news always pushing out negative stuff? Because we are attracted to negativity. You hone in on it. Why is it when somebody tells you 20 times, Mac, you're a bloody great bloke, you've done a great job, like you say, you're a great dad, you're great this, great friend, blah. And then one day somebody comes along and goes, Mac, you stink, mate. I really don't, you're not. What do you remember?
You remember that one thing.
Because we are tuned in to that negativity, and I could go on and on, and like there are twice as many negative words in the dictionary as there are positives, because we just love We hone in to negativity. So we have a negativity bias, and that's because we were not designed for the world that we've created. Okay, this world is kind of quite foreign to us. Now, we know that from our physicality, because we've all realized that sitting at a desk like we're doing now in front of a computer as drones, etc., and just being moderately lazy day to day isn't healthy. Okay,
Yeah.
we can see the rise in obesity, blah blah blah, and all the other conditions that are associated with that, because we were designed to be physical.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. You know, we've got this amazing machine, and that's why I go on about fitness. We don't utilize that, and this machine that we have is intrinsically linked to this thing that we have up here. If you don't move this, this gets affected. If you don't use this correctly, this gets affected. But so can you see where I'm going? Can you see where I'm going with that side of things?
Absolutely, and I'm just thinking to some of the other conversations that we've had with regards to how this all impacts our current scenario. Now, I know you say that there's lots of unknowns and things that we're not quite sure we're going to face, but I think we're in a very interesting time at the moment where we're very lucky in the sense that if we go out there and we make mistakes, that negative message that people generally are attracted to, it will be more acceptable to make mistakes over the coming months than it would have been maybe 3 months ago or even a few weeks ago, because everybody's in the same boat trying to navigate their way in this new world.
I mean, hopefully people will see that. I think that's one of the things that people should try and get their head around.
Well, that's just me trying to be positive again.
But many people won't be in that mindset. And what one of the things that will help, as I said to you, the duality in your head, realize that you are not the emotional creature. That isn't what defines the real you. When you think of yourself and you think of, who you are and what you are and the rational mind that you have, that you do, that is your logical, rational brain. That's the most modern incarnation of the brain, the latest, if you like, software update that we have. And that's what we believe we are. But the emotional brain has to run alongside that all the time, okay? They have to coexist, because this emotional brain is there for a purpose. As I keep saying, it's there to help you survive. It's there to mitigate and help you operate in times of threat. If you are about to step into the road and you look around, there's a car sort of coming towards you, you can't rationally and logically start to process and think, how fast that car going? Is it going to hit me? No, you need to get out of that road really quickly. So the emotional brain has to be incredibly strong and incredibly powerful to enable you to do that. So it takes you over. Literally, it's like 10 times stronger than your rational brain. So when you start having these conversations in your head and you're trying to fight it and you're getting angry with it, you're wasting your time, mate. You cannot beat this thing. You need to think of this like a misbehaving child, or a child that's wants all the time, and you need to treat it calmly and talk to it as though it is a separate entity. First of all, this dissociation from it is a real big help. Okay, you are not it. You are not the emotional state. Okay, that state is there to help you, and if it's not, you need to separate yourself from it and start talking calmly to it to calm it down, like you would a child. You wouldn't beat a child, you wouldn't fight a child, hopefully, and so that's the same way you deal with that emotion, with that separation. Okay,
so that whole PMA thing, in this circumstances is not necessarily a good thing, because there's so many, I guess, books and so much resource out there where everybody just says, oh, you just got to have a positive mental attitude. You just got to, just
you're setting
smile and all get better.
No, well, you're setting yourself up for failure. As I said to you right at the beginning of this, that the only thing that you have to do in this world is survive. And at this moment in time, that is your primary remit. When you start thinking about, are they going to create a vaccine? When's this going to stop? Why are the politicians saying to us that the PPE is not being delivered? Blah, blah, blah. You get enmeshed in all of that stuff. You are involving yourself in things that you cannot control. So your mind is going to go off catastrophizing, and it's going to create more stress hormones. It's going to promote more anxiety, more tension. Your body's going to start to feel tense. Your digestive system is going to be starved of of resource, you're going to start to develop conditions. You know, people don't
stressing me out just by mentioning these things. I'm sitting there going,
Well, this is what people don't understand, in that, you know, if you are continually operating under those stress type environments, if you're initiating the stress response, you are asking your body to do something that it's only designed to do for short periods of time. And if you extend the time by worrying, and asking the body to be supercharged, ready for a fight, ready to run away, all that's happening is that you're sitting there charged up to react, and you're not doing anything. So your body is going to get exhausted, okay? You're going to feel very tired at the end of the day. Not only that, other areas of your body that need the resource that's been taken away from will start to suffer. You'll start to get digestive issues, your skin issues. Other parts of your body will start to fail or not operate correctly. So this is why it's incredibly important to understand what anxiety is from both a physical and a mental point of view. That it is something that is designed to help you create an answer that is there to aid your survival. If it's not doing that, you need to somehow intervene. And this is what we're talking about here. You know, if you're worrying about your situation, I can't address each of your concerns individually and take you through therapy and say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? But what I can do is give you coping strategies, give you an understanding of what's making you feel the way you're feeling and how to move away from that. Now,
okay.
That's where we're going to go, I think. When we're in that stress state, what we need to do is to move away from the stress through to a more relaxed mode. So what's happening is that the sympathetic nervous system is being enacted when we're in fight or flight mode. We need to calm that down or do something to it to move to the parasympathetic nervous system to be calm, and then we can operate with our rational brain rather than the emotional brain. Okay.
Yeah, so this is exciting, because I know a few people have reached out and said to me they've got this fear of missing out, and there's so much going on, and they're so worried. And the one question that I really liked is you know, and was a popular one, was how do you get to what you were just saying now, that point where you can just calm things down, take a step back, and how do you know, what are the tools that you use to deal with this anxiety head on, so that you can just go, you know, you can breathe?
Absolutely. Well, as I said, understanding the physiological actions that are going on, understanding the chemicals that are being produced, not to any great extent, just on a basic level, like I've told you today, will help you understand why you do the things that I'm about to talk about. Now, one of the big things that I'm into is exercise. Now, I never realized why I was into exercise. I've been running around like a mad thing since I was about 4 years old, apparently, according to my mother, you know, rest in peace. And she thought it was the orange juice that she was giving me. But no, I was self-medicating. And what was happening is because I was living in a stressful environment because of the issues I had in childhood and all the rest of it, I found subconsciously, for some reason, that running around like a mad thing helped me. And the reason it helped me was simple. It didn't create endorphins in me. Exercise doesn't create, the jury is out as to whether it creates those feel-good things or not. It may well do in certain instances, but the main reason that people feel better after exercise is they are literally burning up the stress hormones that are produced when you get anxious, or even
So I'm thinking out loud, because that's the way I process. So are you saying that when somebody has a child, for example, like you're referring to, that is extremely energetic and hyper and run around like, you know, the ever ready bunny on steroids, that's just, or a high contribution to that may be burning up the stress and the negative energy?
It could be I'm not necessarily saying it's because they come from a situation whereby they're incredibly anxious, but it may well be that certain factors in their environment are creating that extra energy in them, okay? Whether it be the things that they eat, whether it be the behavioural influences that they're subjected to, whether it be other environmental factors, the same response is happening. that their body is becoming supercharged. That's why they can keep running around and around. They're running on emotion. You know, when you look at children, are they sane, rational, logical human beings? Can you have a pragmatic, reasonable conversation with them all the time? Most of the time, anytime.
You can't use the word all.
Because they're running on emotion most of the time, because they haven't had the life experience. They don't have the emotional intelligence. They haven't had the interactions and stuff that we have supposedly have by becoming adults, to understand that, you know, operating out of an emotional sense, either yay or isn't the way to exist in the world. So, you know, I'm not necessarily saying that it's due to anxiety that your kid's running around, but the same chemicals that are causing it to run around can be attributed to when you become anxious. Anxiety will produce those. Other things will produce them and cause them to run around. I wouldn't categorically say, I'm not medically trained in that way, but letting them run around, letting them express their physicality, okay, will help. You know, if you want it to be more controlled, structure it in some way. All right, and then they'll sleep at night. Believe me, I've been there. All right, they will sleep at night. If you try and repress it, okay, that's when the issues occur. Now, for someone like me, I talked about, you know, using exercise. For someone like me, at this moment in time, I'm not able to exercise. So what else can I do? You know, because I'm, you know, if I go 3 or 4 days without exercise, previously I'd be running up the walls. You know, I would be like going manic. But at this moment in time, I can't exercise. So understanding how the brain structures and the chemical processes work, I realised that I've got to move from a stressed, excited state to a relaxed state to stop the production of these stress hormones. That's why doing things like hypnosis, meditation, breathing techniques, listening to music, having a warm bath, whatever it is, sitting out in the sunshine. I've found this amazing over the past few days. Got a hammock out. I'm lucky. All right, I'm lucky, guys. I've got a hammock out there in the garden. I'm sitting in the sunshine, you know, just chilling to podcast. All these things will calm that emotional brain down, and it will allow you know you to feel normal again. So many people have lost the sense of feeling normal that when they do experience it, they become euphoric because they've forgotten that is the norm. You know, I have many clients who, well, after I've hypnotized them for the first time, when they get into a relaxed state, they come out of it, it's like, what the, you know? And I say, believe it or not, this is normal. And then often they will cry at that point, because like the frog that gets stuck in the pan and gets boiled to death because it keeps adapting as the water gets hotter and never jumps out, they accept when anxiety and stress increases that's the norm and keep going on at that basis. So relaxation is absolute. Being able to relax is absolutely key. Another thing that you can do is to, as people talk about, is mindfulness. Oh, you'll be mindful, blah blah blah. All that means is basically, let's just be in the moment. All right, be in the present, because being in the present is anxiety's enemy. Where does anxiety exist? It exists in the past. It exists in the future. But if you become present, you can't be thinking about the past. You can't be thinking about the future. So how do you become present? Matt, give me some ideas about how you might become present.
So for me, breathing is a big one. I find I can run away very easily. I've got what is a good friend of mine referred to as butterfly mentality. So I can flit about all over the place. But for me to become present, I sometimes literally just have to take a step away from what I'm doing and just look at my breathing, look at what's going on around me, and refocus, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, absolutely. So things like breathing, fantastic. Just doing something that you have to concentrate on, you know, things like your email, a puzzle, you know, Sudoku, I don't know. Anything that makes you making something new, getting engaged in something, you know, being curious about something. One of the things that this whole COVID thing has put into perspective is that many people are having to be on their own for the first time ever, and they find it very uncomfortable. Now, you know, I'm a child of the 70s. I can remember when you didn't have, you know, anything to stimulate you. I mean, seriously, you know, I had 2 or 3, I'm not trying to say I was hard done by, but you didn't have the plethora of toys, distractions, you know, video, all the rest of it. You had to be bored. And when you became bored, you became inventive. It massively created this curiosity. So curiosity about how things work, what you can do to make things work, that can stimulate. But a lot of people have a problem with this, being on their own, because they're not used to being with themselves. They're not used to appreciate what it is to be comfortable with yourself and silence. Now, you know, people get very frightened by that, and they're looking for distraction. They're looking to, oh no, I've got to do something. You don't. I would say
the necessity to keep being busy.
Yeah. And this keeping busy is what's contributing to a lot of the recent anxiety before COVID came along. You know, again, we have, as I said, we've got this duality of brains in our head. And one of those, the emotional brain, is not designed for busy. All right. And we're bombarding it with too much processing. It can't multitask in this way. And what happens is that creates a sense of threat. It also creates a sense of stress, because there's never enough time to do everything. So you're stopping, like the butterfly effect as you created. And no completion creates even more stress. So your ambient level goes up and up and up. You move from the parasympathetic to sympathetic mode. You get more stressed and blah, blah, blah. Anxiety rises. And before you know it, you know, you're exhausted. And you don't really know why. And people are saying, well, why are there so much anxiety going on today? We're overstimulated. So in many ways, this lack of stimulation will force people to slow down. Okay. So being comfortable with yourself to find those moments, finding acceptance of yourself will help you in the long run. It might be difficult to start with, but it's something that you can work on, because, as I said, to reduce those stress hormones, we need to either burn them up or calm them down. All right, those are the two ways that you can do it. Now we've highlighted a number of ways, and Matt, can you think of anything else that you wanted to?
Well, I know. Hey,
I can go on and on.
I know. I was just thinking. I know you sent me a few links of some exercises that people can do. One, listening to yourself. There's one on the beach, I think, and something else. Where those links I've actually put in the description for people to actually go and have a look at that afterwards. But if you can talk us through that, you know, the 1 or 2 practical things that you can do to remove yourself. Yes, you've got exercise and all those other little things. But what is the best, or what do you find works for you, Mark?
So, as I said, you know, exercise is the main one for me, but then using hypnosis and meditating as well. Now, it's very difficult when you're starting out to meditate yourself, and that's why guided meditations are a great idea. You know, you can tune into those on Spotify and all sorts of other mediums online for free, you know, or listening to tracks on YouTube. There are multiple channels on YouTube that offer meditation and or hypnosis tracks. I've got my own there, HA2 hypnotherapy. We'll put a link to it, and I've got a number of relaxation tracks there that can help you calm down, to move away from that anxious state where you're always thinking about what could happen or what has happened and how the two can collide, to the more present, you know, to be more present. And when you're more present, those stress hormones start to dissipate. All right. So doing, as I said, meditation, hypnosis, mindfulness, becoming present. Now, you know, as I said, you can do that any number of ways, but finding, you know, something to do, whether that is something that you've been putting off forever and ever. Now is a great opportunity to do all those things that you thought you'd never do, you know. Also, we haven't even touched upon relationships and connections, because when you're in this confined environment now, especially if you're living with other people, obviously, there's going to be fractures, and many of you are going to be operating out of that emotional brain a lot of the time because you're feeling stressed. And what I want to do is, as I want to say to all of you, is to be kind. Be kind not only to those other people in your house, but be kind to yourself. Realize that this is not real, okay? I mean, it is real because it's happening, but this is not the normal reality, the reality that you're used to. So you're going to behave in different ways. So let yourself off, be kind to yourself, okay? And also realize that those other people, they may say things to you that become very offensive. I've had it happen to me already, you know. As I said, I've got an issue with my sibling, etc. But you mustn't believe that that's them. Much as I'm saying to you that when you're operating out of an emotional state, it's not you. When they're operating out of that emotional state, especially in this environment, that's what I'm saying, it wouldn't necessarily be the way they would operate normally. So give yourself a little bit of slack there and leeway on the relationships. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And I think there's you know, a whole session we can do and an interview just on that side of things, which you know, I'll discuss with you afterwards. But and I'd love to explore that a little bit more in detail, because that's a whole can of worms on its own.
Can I just throw in couple of more things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mechanisms, and these are all basics. I'm not, you know, people might have come on in and thought, oh, he's going to give me the magic bullet, but you know, these are all pretty obvious things, but they are essential, and many of us don't do them. Think, oh, we should, and we'll put it off and off. But these are essential. Getting enough sleep, okay? Getting enough sleep is essential, okay?
So I'm an interesting one for this, because what is enough sleep? Because I have some days where I've had 4.5, 5 hours sleep, and I feel fantastic when I wake up at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on top of the world. And then other days I'll have a full 8 hours sleep, but I struggle to wake up in the morning.
I mean, yeah, I get it. I get it. I mean, sleep.
My mind is always busy.
Yeah. Sleep needs, you were talking about earlier about change and how we're not adapting to the change, and what is it about that? And I was saying to you that we're creatures of habit, we don't like change and all the rest of it. And this is particularly relevant when it comes to sleep. You know, your body expects you to do things at certain times. We were designed to go to bed when the sun went down, and we're designed to get up when the sun comes up. And if you think about it, that changes throughout the year. So you're saying, why do I need it more or less? And sometimes it could be that factor. It could be all sorts of other factors as well, depending on your stress level, your hormone level, the time of the month, the moon phases, whatever.
I feel there's a whole conversation just on sleep there.
Whole conversation on sleep. But typically, for a grown adult, between 6 and 7.5 hours is a good length of sleep. And what you have there is 4 to 5 sleep cycle, 90-minute sleep cycles. All right, and sometimes when you wake up, you can feel exhausted, even though you've had 8 hours. You might be cutting through a sleep cycle. You might be being woken up halfway through deep sleep, you know, when the alarm goes off. So you've got to get the timings on the sleep. Waking up naturally is the best way to do it if you can. Those sunrise clocks or setting, you know, that 6 hours means that's 4 sleep cycles, so wake up at that point. So I would say that a good 6 hours uninterrupted sleep is far better than 9 hours of interrupted sleep, you know. So the quality of the sleep is important as well. But setting up that structure for your sleep, so go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. And that leads on to routine, which is the last thing that we can probably throw in here. I don't know how long you want to go on for, Matt, but having a routine is key to not feeling overwhelmed and lost at this point, all right? So if you can structure your day so you get up at a certain time, you do your ablutions, you have your breakfast, you get dressed, you know, treat it like a normal working day if you're working, or if you've got kids, you've got the lesson structures. If you've got your exercise at this particular time, you lunch at this time. So there's a structure and a routine. That will give you purpose that you can feel control over, because this is where a lot of people are having an issue. They've lost control, all right? Because they're trying to encapsulate what's happening out there. They've got no control over it, and that creates the anxiety. What they can control is what's inside their house, okay? You can control your diet. You can control your sleep. You can control your exercise. You know, you can control what you do in your house and around it during the day. Your only remit, remember, at the base of all of this is to survive. Okay, you only need to survive to be a success. Everything else, you when and if the opportunities present, you know, you can look at and deal with. But just keep hanging on to that. I'm surviving. That's my main remit for you and the people that you love and are dear to you. All right, and that's really about it.
Mark, you've given us massive value with regards to context. I know you've been through a heck of a lot over the last few weeks alone, and just having you give your full energy over the last hour, when I know you should be out there resting in your hammock in the sunshine. I want to say massive thank you, and I'm sure we're going to have lots more conversations and be able to address the relationship side of things, maybe even sleep and various other things in the future.
Loads.
Absolutely, but obviously I've put those links into the description so people can go and have a listen to some of those relaxing tools that you've supplied. But for people to be able to get hold of you if they've got more questions or they've got something more specific that they'd like to ask about, regardless of where they are in the world, what are the best methods of them being able to get hold of you?
Sure. Well, you can do that by email. That's definitely, you can hook up through Facebook. We'll put those links again within the credits.
Into the description, sure.
You can see my website. I'm still doing sessions, okay? Not face-to-face. The majority of the sessions I used to do were one-on-one face-to-face sessions, but I'm doing them over Skype. And I'm finding that actually hypnotherapy and therapy through Skype is as, if not more, sometimes successful than face-to-face therapy. People feel more comfortable where they are. So as long as you've got a good broadband connection, you can find a room where you can be relatively undisturbed. It can work very, very effectively. And I can be then much more specific about the issues that pertain to you. Today's been a general talk on anxiety and the factors that are involved with it, and understanding of it, and some basic coping mechanisms. But often there are many things as far as your life's concerned that have brought you to feel the way you've felt. And that's where, I can work with you on a one-on-one basis.
Excellent stuff, Mark. Thank you so much. And for everybody that's tuned in and all of those who will be watching this in the future, my message to you is all of us at some point will have anxiety. It's what you do with it, and it's the meaning you give it that will change everything. So, if you want to reach out to either myself or to Mark, more than happy to put you in touch with Mark and give those bits of information in the descriptions afterwards. But please reach out. There are so many ways that you can be helped. So thank you very much again, Mark. And I'm excited about helping as many of you guys out there as possible. So have a great day, and thank you so much for watching.